We're live. Look it, here we are.
All right.
It's the first intro of the mega band of AI Mega Babes. What's up? It's Rose Kaz. If you're on LinkedIn, sorry, we were just having a little bit of technical difficulties. Stay tuned for the behind the scene pictures of women in technology and how analogous it can be and redonkulous. I'm joined here by some amazing women who are working with AI. I will say leading in AI in its build in healthcare and in various nonprofit and startup models. So Teresa Younkin.
Yes.
Did I do it right this time?
Younkin.
Teresa Younkin, visiting Portland from Arizona, and our new bestie of AI, Addie Olson, here in Portland, all the way from the other side in Hotlanta and other places that were hotter than that. Ladies, I'm so glad that not only did we finally figure out our little tech snafu, but like actually in setting up the sound, which I hope you can hear me and see all of us and hear them too. We are going to talk a bit about AI, specifically how it has been trained, how it could be trained, and the future of why that matters for the future of power dynamics in all sorts of spaces, healthcare, nonprofits, just hanging outside as a human. As I said, I'm Rose Kaz, and Money, Sex, and Politics is in its third season. We just dropped episode 1 for season 3 yesterday, also with a mega band of mega babes. In case you missed it, it's also on YouTube. Hi YouTube, we're live on YouTube and Instagram until Meta says like this is too much sexy for the internet. Anyway, so let's get this conversation started. Teresa, starting with you first. You have long been working in technology. You have long been a human having a healthcare experience. You had personal healthcare experiences that really drove your technology and your focus on healthcare into one sort of central experience. Can you talk a little bit about that lead to this moment and why you're working with AI and the way you are in the moment?
Very cool. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm super excited to be here with Rose and with Addie. This is amazing. All the energy, all the power. So that kind of leads into my whole story. So I was widowed very young. We used interoperability at that time, which means that we can talk across the country, which meant fax machines. I decided I want to make a change in healthcare so that other women, especially with little kids or any family member, didn't have to go through the madness of having to carry records across the country, trying to just get basic information so that your loved one could have the best life possible and the best journey to the outcome that was going to come. So I got involved in healthcare from the community side, like educating people about how you can use technology back when physicians first got computers into their offices. And from there, it has just been one technology after another. I see it and I think, how can I make this better for other people? And once I do that, I learn, I educate, I speak on it, just like I'm doing with AI now. So we're going from now we can get data from one place to another place. How do we use it? And what's the best way to use it so that people have the right information at the right time to act on it and make it better for the patient at the end of the day?
Thanks for breaking it down like that. And also thank you for being a human who cares about systems working for other humans,
Yes.
Because I think that might be for some people a barrier to like, I'm not talking about AI right now, or like it's just like the buzz right now, like that other thing that will soon go away. And I think all three of us agree that that's not the case. And really it's data, it's info, and it's sharing it in a way that's helpful. And so for you, Addie, I know having worked at the Fed and having had other experiences from like organizational systems and noticing how data and information is shared, that has probably inspired your desire to create a consultancy around it. So talk a little bit about like your come up to this moment.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks again for having me. So excited to be here with, again, the mega band of mega babes. Loving it. But yeah, thanks. So my journey, I think, around data starts when I took a statistics class in high school. I realized I was like, math is cool. But now it's useful and I'm interested in it. And so in college, I was really excited to study statistics and just so fascinated with data and how we can measure the world around us and then use statistics and math to model it and make a representation. And so was kind of in that era in college, like, okay, this is cool. I love the numbers. I love the math, but how do I apply this? And how does that matter to me? And I first went down the finance track. What mattered to me as a broke college student was making money. And I was like, oh, finance jobs, those pay a lot of money. Cool. There's a lot of numbers there, stats, we can work with the numbers. So pursued that track, did an internship at a bank and realized, oh, wow, okay, yes, I personally can make a lot of money here, but what is kind of happening at the end of the day? Lots of deadlines and maximizing things, minimizing things. And I really didn't feel like as an industry, it was kind of helping the regular, average, everyday person. I kind of came away from that internship being like, we're helping make the rich people richer, and that's cool. And I didn't find it very motivating. So I was like, what is kind of my next step in how I apply these skills around data and numbers? And conveniently from the internship, I was looking out the window at the Dallas Federal Reserve building. And I was like, I wonder. And so started to look into the Fed and was kind of like, okay, I have this interest in finance and banking. The Fed is this org that is helping build an economy that works for everyone. And so pursued that with my career track and was awesome. It was a very wonderful experience, very grateful for it. And I spent many years there and just kind of always had this itch that I wanted to be closer to the impact. Being part of a big org and being part of a big system, there's so many benefits from that and so much of a big impact that you can have. But of course, it moves slower. You're kind of just like one part of the machine. And I was like, I really want to be like boots on the ground, having an impact, especially as technology and AI, machine learning, natural language processing is just moving so fast. I need to position myself so that I can be in the conversation and be part of what's happening next and having an impact on things that I care about. So that's when I made the jump to do independent consulting, focusing on nonprofits, startups, and small businesses, which is really exciting. I see that there's so much opportunity for impact in that space, and that's what I want to be a part of.
Awesome. I'm so glad that you said the word impact so much, because I think it's really, really important to think about like anybody, whether you're running your own business, your own consultancy, if you're working inside someone's business, if you're retired, if you're not yet in the workforce, like we all have personal impact, like, and collectively we have massive impact. And so right now, speaking about all of the advances with AI that have seemingly come so quickly, which I think is definitely partially true, but it's also been around longer than many of us probably realize. And for my part, I've been a lifetime entrepreneur, for better or worse. An outside cat. I really call myself an outside cat. So I had built a product and I was in the market in 2023 with the product, with a developer, with a dev team. I don't write code. I don't know the first thing about writing code. First of all, I just want to be super clear. I don't fucking get it. Like, please, if you want to drop F-bombs, enjoy yourself. If you don't, I'm sorry. I'm fucking sorry. It's Friday. It is beyond me how some of the parts of technology work. On other parts, because I'm a storyteller and I'm a systems person, I'm like, oh, right. Like I can nerd out on like the brain and neuroscience and how it's similar to the internet. And some people are like, Rose, like you lost me at neuroscience, right? So we all have our different ways of like getting into this consideration, this conversation. But for my part in 2023, when my lead of my dev team was like, Rose, listen, we are a startup. And if I keep charging you like this, it's going to be absurd because the amount of work we've done in the last 2 years, we can do literally in 5 minutes for like a fraction of the cost. And I was like, cool, time out. I need to learn everything I can learn about this, because if it's going to impact my big goal, which is ultimately to have a directory of resources for women-owned businesses around, money, sex, and politics, then I got to get smarter about this. And so you'll see more conversations like this, mega bands of mega babes, as I say, in regards to this topic of AI around money, because I really, truly believe, and I bet both of you gals do too, that like, anybody should be leaning into AI if they want to be pertinent in the future, but particularly women, because when money and technology move forward, we must also, or we will not be involved. And so, Teresa, I see you're like, yes. So talk a little bit about your experience in watching. You said fax machines, right?
Yeah.
And like that was the way people sent medical documents at a certain point.
Exactly.
And we've gone to emails, and now we have
Yeah.
the possibility of using AI to create all sorts of different workflows and info shares. How do you see that tempo being just, I guess, do you love that tempo? Do you hate that tempo? It doesn't matter. It's what's
Oh,
real. But like, what are your
Yeah.
feelings about it?
I love the ability to move faster. And I think that we, as women who are going to get into this space, number one, because we're going to move so fast, we've got to be okay with failing. And we've got to rethink what failure is, because failure doesn't mean that something's gone wrong. It means that you've learned something so that it can go right. So for me, I think the faster we go, and especially as women, this is an even playing field right now. Nobody, absolutely nobody, has any idea of what's coming up, gosh, in the next year, what this is going to look like. And so anybody, as long as you want to learn, you can learn and you can get in. And right now, you don't even need a code. There are so much no-code agents out there. If you're going to be using AI, you don't even need a code. And if you want to learn how to code, have a conversation with one of the GPTs out there, and you can code like that. So right now, there is nobody who's got the upper hand on anybody else. We need to jump in, and I will say this. I believe that women have the ability to be able to be process and systems thinkers, because we naturally have to do process and systems thinkings to run our families, to run our finances, and to run our careers. So this is not a skill that we don't inherently have.
What are your thoughts, Addie?
Yeah, I think those are really great points. And I think as women, we bring this skill of network building and kind of this like higher level, being able to chain together a lot of complex tasks. And really that's a core skill set that we're going to need as AI takes away a lot of those like menial repetitive tasks that no one probably likes to do anyways. And also, like, if we want to really dig into it, a lot of those administrational jobs are majoritively held by women.
Yeah.
And so, you can take one perspective and be like, oh no, lots of women are going to lose jobs, or their jobs might be automated. But at the same time, the playing field is very level right now. Things are very open. It's very democratized. And there's lots of opportunities for upskilling and kind of pursuing that, using that big picture thinking, creativity, that big brain energy.
Big brain energy. Hot. Yes.
And like using these available tools and using it to kind of figure out what you and your values are and your missions are, and set and execute on that. I think all we need is like more courage and bravery to like set out and do it and encourage others.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think that's probably why you have a podcast. You have a podcast. I'm on LinkedIn every week talking about this to people, because I want women to excel. And again, like I said, this is an even playing field. It's time for us to do the thing that we do the best. So I know that's a lot of the reason why I'm there, and a lot of the reason why I support. When people reach out, I love to have a conversation, because it just opens the door, because there's so many possibilities that have never been available to be able to bring ideas to life, to create new products in the market, and actually start to fill other needs. And you can live your passion out here. So,
well, I like that AI is an entry point. I heard you say like it's a democratized playing field. Nobody's really sure what's going to happen in a year, and so these are like exciting. Like we're over here like cheerleading the ladies on LinkedIn and the guys too, right? But specifically for I've heard a lot of in my last 5 years inside of the sort of tech startup bubble, which I didn't even know I was trying to get into, and then suddenly I was like, what? Let me out. Is that right? Like there are people who are very tech savvy, and then there's everybody else. And I think what AI is showing is that you don't have to have the tech savviness to be part of this forward evolution. Now, on the flip, I want to say it's really interesting that because of that sort of wild west feel or wide open potentiality, there not being rules means that when I ask a question at a panel where there's two big companies. You can figure out who they might be, but they're local to the Pacific Northwest that are technology companies. And their astute leaders are talking about these great things and what they're doing inside and how they're testing first with their teams and then how they'll eventually put things out into the marketplace. But when I asked just a little, I couldn't help my hand just shot up in the air, even though I was sort of saying, Rose, not today. What's up with the ethics? What's up with the bias? What is your policy? How do you handle that as a big multinational company and protecting both your staff and the people who are using your products? And I have to say, as much respect as I had for the entire conversation and the leaders, it wasn't a really great answer. Like, it was kind of a not answer. And I think that that's problematic in the sense that we're looking at a tool that is so massively powerful, and not like I want one person to come down some, great and powerful odds to say like, these are the rules of the AI overlords, right? But I'd be curious to hear what you both have to say about the larger components of these AI tools, right? Let's look at Chat GPT, let's look at Gemini, let's look at any of these major players. And most of the product that is out there has been pulled from information that has been created, coded, and set together by a very specific demographic of builders. And most of those builders don't look like us, right? So one could say that's maybe not an ethical problem, but it is a consideration of bias that's pretty real. And I know that I'm not going to convince everybody to go build their own chatbot or everybody to go do the MIT certification or whatever. But what do y'all think about participating in a way that helps push that bias to be less? We can never have something that's completely unbiased, right? But how can we participate as individuals to help that bias be less massive?
I'll start. So I love that we use the word bias, because within statistical models, bias usually means something like very specific that we're measuring and, has some sort of factor in our algorithm, whether we're trying to minimize it or measure it or balance it with our variance. So I just, love that little nerdy tie in there. But, when it comes down to it, I like to try to break it down into 3 categories. First is our input bias or our data bias. And when you talk about these really big models like ChatGPT that pull everything from English Wikipedia and all of English literature and stuff, no one, specifically has the time to read through all of that data and think, how might this be biased against or for certain classes or people or beliefs or views? It's kind of just like all dumped into this. And so, garbage in, garbage out. They say that all the time, but maybe more just like awareness of what's coming in and realizing that that's what's going to come out on the other side. So there's like the data bias piece of it. And there's lots of like interventions and ways to deal with that. But I think one is like the cognizance and measuring, getting to know your data. What is it telling us? Then, like you're pointing out, there's kind of like the middle part, which I like to call like practitioner or design bias. So who's designing the systems? Are they thinking about these considerations? How are they building the models and the systems from their point of view? And how is that going to influence this third part, which is like the application or the use bias, which is like, I'm coming to this tool with me and my privilege and my bias, and my understandings. And therefore, I'm going to be interpreting the results this way, but also maybe I'm going to be using them this way. And there's things that I am or am not considering. So that's kind of just like a myriad of issues. But to your point, like what can we do? And I think is really understand ourselves and our values and have that social good hat and kind of bring that and notice when things don't sound right. Like bringing that accountability, be like, I would love to work with a company that has a really good statement on their ethics behind this. And so I'm going to seek out using a tool from a company that does have that, and not use a tool from a company that does not have that or doesn't disclose or doesn't tell you what's going on under the hood, as well as like, accountability, calling things out. And what was the next thing I was going to say here? I think like representation matters as well. So as we continue to interact with these tools, getting back to our point of like why it's really important for women to be part of the conversation and using it, is that like our data is now getting fed into and is going to be used to retrain. So like we, just by using it, are imbuing our values and our personalities and our way of saying things and things that we care about are getting in there too. So, it's like, let's not be afraid of it. Let's dive in. Let's use it. Let's be part of the conversation.
Yeah. I agree with you 100% because if you don't use it, you don't know what bias is in there, and you'll never get it out. So I know in healthcare, most of the evidence that we use for treatments are based on 50-year-old white men. And so Rose and I talked about this the other day. Heart attacks for women don't look like heart attacks for men at all. So, when you're asking ChatGPT a question like, oh, like I'm eating and I don't feel well. I've had like these things happen. I'm on a statin, this, that, or the other. ChatGPT is going to look and be like, oh, well, do you have chest pain? Do you have pain in your jaw? Has your right arm gone numb? Those types of things. Well, it doesn't present like that for women. And so you could be asking questions about yourself and your body and, trying to figure out to get a clue of where you should go and what direction you should take. Because at this point in time, because we have tools like Google and ChatGPT, a lot of the medical profession is like, if you come in with an opinion about what you have, they'd let you drive the conversation. And so I've had to start taking a step back and not saying anything and letting the professional say something and then ask questions. Because I don't want, as a patient, because I don't want to be the person who makes the medical decision because I know this much, this much. And, I think the power of having things like ChatGPT and large data sets is that now, and now you've got this much data at your fingertips, right? So you should be able to help me narrow this down to a point where we're having a conversation. I'm informed and you're informed. And it should be a dual conversation that's coming. And so training the models we have to continually input this data, and we can't just stop with what we've gotten. And that means review cycles that are coming. And I think that there's a lot of time, energy, space, and opportunity for those of us to actually, like when you get your notes, like in your portal, to actually go back and look at it and say, yes, this is right, or no, this isn't, because they're going to use that to train the models. And
notes from your doctor?
Yes.
Yeah, I see.
Notes from your doctor in your portal. So all that information is being fed into their systems, and that's how they do predictive analytics. So that's how they will say, like, hey, you know what, your cholesterol's too high, and your blood sugar looks like you're getting ready to become diabetic or pre-diabetic. So let's put you on a GLP-1. So, they can tell as you're taking these steps, right? Like the disease progression of how it's going to go, but we have to feed up more information about how that looks for women, how it looks for men, how it looks for children.
So from both your perspectives, and so you're working both in healthcare to be sure that the medical professionals are being considerate of this.
Yes.
But you're also working with individual women who are like curious about how could me as a patient who isn't, let's pretend I don't care about AI, but you would be kind of Sherpaing me through the better uses of it? Or are you more focusing on how the healthcare providers,
women who are working in healthcare?
In healthcare, got it. Okay.
Can use AI to further their careers because they have these large amounts of data.
Right.
They have large amounts of knowledge that need to help to train the models that are there.
Which is interesting, right? Because some of these tools, right, they've again been tucked into other tools that we wouldn't have maybe recognized as AI, but then right, and then as whoever's in that particular role in interacting with the tool, having a better consideration of how you might be driving the tool or informing it is super, super interesting. Do you think that when you're working, with a small business or even nonprofit, there is the consideration of how powerful the data is, especially for nonprofits, right? Because they need these key KPIs, key performance indicators, data sets, sharing we had 100 people through this particular program. Do you think understanding their ability to drive the AI to give them better information has landed, or do you feel like that's still a process you're working on, clarifying and convincing?
Yeah, that's such a good question. If we kind of stay in the nonprofit space, there's the programmatic work. What are we doing? What's our mission? How are we trying to fulfill that? And then there's the data piece. And a lot of times for these smaller organizations, that's maybe kind of where the conversation stops. Like, we don't have a great system for collecting data, or we do, and we don't know if we trust it, So that's usually step one, is like trying to build a system to collect data that's as unbiased as it can be, and also as easy to use as can be. So we're not putting any extra burden, and something, that's a good representation. And then, once we kind of have that data piece, which I think collecting that data is getting easier and easier with all the technological advances and different ways we can use AI to like record a talk like this, and then get the transcript, get the notes, summarize. And we don't have to even think about that or do it. It can happen automatically. But yeah, once we have that data, then it's about really keeping in mind what your mission and what your values are. So like, what are we trying to minimize? What are we trying to maximize? And like, what would that look like? We're trying to minimize the amount of homeless people like that come through our kitchen every day. Like, we're here to have this immediate intervention, but our actual mission is to, help resolve this problem at a higher system level. And I think it really does take, again, that bigger picture, coming back to that bigger picture system thinking, opening up our mind and thinking what's possible. Like, if I can think back and get the data for the past 40 years that we've been working with this type of people, I want to be able to ask questions like, which things worked the best for them? What types of people responded better to which interventions or which of our programs? And how can we use that to make decisions of how we're going to strategize or use our limited resources that we get? So kind of coming back to this, like getting, first figuring out how to get our data in a good way, and then getting out of the weeds, out of like, I have no time, I have to send so many emails, I have to move so many things from this to here, and do that so many times to be able to really open up our eyes and take that big picture view of what we're trying to go for.
And I'd like, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I want to tag on to this too. So there's this technical component of it, but there's also an operational piece of it that I don't think that we've touched on yet, and that's governance. So those are the rules of the road when you decide that we're going to collect this data, how we're going to use it, how do we disclose that it has been through some sort of AI process, right? Like, have we generated data with it? When we do our annual reports, did we do part of the annual reports, and did we generate it using some sort of LLM to help us? And then where are we going to disclose that to everybody? And then how do we disclose to the people who are using our services that we're using AI and using their data to create these programs? And I sat on the board of the Women's Center, like a domestic violence shelter, for 7 years. And reporting every year was such a burden because you're collecting data, you've got staff turnover, and it depends on how you ask a question, how you get an answer back. So sometimes your data isn't completely linear, even if you've got the questions written down. And so those are the things when I think about going into that nonprofit sector that we have to start thinking about too. So how do we disclose that we're actually using AI to help us? And then how do we tell the story to our clients that it's helping them, and how are they benefiting from it? Because there's a movement for people to start owning their own data and then charging for people to use it. So what does that look like? And especially I think in the nonprofit world too, we don't have a whole lot of federal oversight right now. We don't have rules, we don't have guidelines. So I think it's going to take us collectively and collaboratively talking about what shared governance looks like and what the rules of the road are from boots on the ground. And it's not going to come from up high anymore, because corporate governance is going to be more very, very broad, and it's going to be your standard operating procedures, your SOPs, that are going to hold it up. And that's how you become accountable as an organization, and how your clients and members actually trust you, because now there's transparency.
More mega bands to come. And I think it's also that qualitative versus quantitative, right? You need the quantitative, but you need to show at the same time being very mindful of privacy, especially around healthcare, especially around domestic abuse and things like that. And just generally, right? Like, even though, like, I mean, we're all ladies in this room, we've all had at least one period in our life, unfortunately, right? But that's something that I think is very interesting as far as data around cycles, right? And gosh, I'm sure Tampax is just so excited to get all of those period tracking details when it's like, that's not really their, I mean, it's their business from a P&L, profits and loss,
Yeah.
but it's your healthcare data. It's my ovulation cycle. It's your menstruation moment, you know? And so I just think that those are really fascinating examples of security. And that was actually, you read my mind, Teresa, just thinking like in our sort of final landing the plane, I wanted to get into a little bit of the security pieces of it, because since there is so little governance and we're not even, you know, OpenAI's board has shifted and you know, the grandfather of AI was like, oh, this is all going so fast. I'm sure you know, one of you know his name. I can't think of it right now.
I'm the worst with names, but give me a second.
He's a white guy. He's an older white guy.
That narrows it down.
Eric? Oh, no.
Older name. That's probably his son's name. I don't know. But anyways, somebody out there on the socials will probably tell us and explain and tell us who it is. But I remember, you know, last year when OpenAI had sort of ousted their leader, the board got all shuffled, and then the grandfather AI was like, listen, this is all a little Wild West, and like, there's no rules, and there's no this, and there's no that. And so from a security perspective, I actually just wrote about this on the Business for Good blog, check your default settings, right? And so while we don't have necessarily like 10 ways to like ensure your robot is not being the worst, what I think we can talk about is like, what are the default settings on these platforms, right? How frequently are we just like allowing full access to all of our information versus like when I'm plugged in or when I'm using this, or you're going to save. I know I just went in and updated on ChatGPT, like how much, like how frequently they restore up to the cloud and how frequently it like refreshes. Because I know I asked the robot like, hey, pull that thing up we worked yesterday. And they're like, oh, I don't know where it's at. But then sometimes I ask and they're like, no problem, it's right here. And so it had me thinking even more about like just the cycling of my particular data. I'm asking it to speak more like this, or go find this information, or pull this data. I'm not trying to say it, you know, I'm not telling it anything nefarious, but at the same time, if I'm writing about specific things, that's my IP. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big InfoShare proponent, but I'm curious what you all think. Just, there's not a really specific question, but just like security generally, anything that lately you've been like, this is what I always do to kind of keep safe with AI at the moment, because there aren't a lot of rules.
Yeah, I can share some like quick best practices. Also from someone who worked at the Federal Reserve with a lot of very highly confidential data, being in like a very closed off data ecosystem with lots of considerations about the risk of data security. So coming from kind of that background, also from like the regulation point of view, just to say, you know, it is the Wild West right now. And again, like regulation and transparency is very much needed. But getting back to practical tips, I like to break data into 3 buckets. There's like confidential data, PII data, things like HIPAA data. That stuff, let's not put it into any just kind of like open-facing AI tool that you can get to on your browser. Doesn't belong there because it's someone else's data or it's your personal data. The second level of data I would call like internal data. So things that are like your specific IP, things that are specific to you, specific to your organization, trade secrets, perhaps, you know, not someone's like physical healthcare data. So that's kind of like level 2 data. I'd say, you know, again, there are so many ways that AI tools can help us, but let's use that when we have learning mode off on those tools. So depending on the tool, the settings look a little bit different, but you can go into the tool and usually there's some sort of like slider button that says like, share your data to make this better. You know, I'm letting, you know, ChatGPT, use my data to make it better. If we turn that off, we can feel better about using that internal data. And then there's like level 3 data is like public data, you know, maybe our random string of consciousness thoughts from a call we just had, as long as, you know, we're not, again, not using anyone's PII. And so then that's like, you know, go for it. It can be there. It's fine. It's, you know, internet drivel that's gonna continuously be around. And so I like to break it into those 3 categories and have those 3 rules Also, just a quick pitch for one of my good friends, Josh, and his co-founder are developing a tool called Safe Redact, where you can paste in your documents, emails, things that contain sensitive information. There is an internal model that will redact that information, basically take it out of the text, put in something like person one, item number this, account number this, send it to ChatGPT for that revision or summarization or whatever task, bring it back into the tool, plop that data back in. And so I think, again, like tools like that that are coming around are going to be really useful. We can just like peace of mind, none of my, secret missile launch codes are going to.
That just goes on Signal chats.
Yeah, just on, which is sometimes going to work for you. But
I mean, he's not still fired. He's not been fired yet, right?
I don't know about that.
We'll see. But yeah, that's how I like to think about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Teresa.
Yeah. Boy, I work in very locked down environments because we use so much patient data and because we're just gathering a lot of PII. So I tell people all the time, if you've got your own environment and your own license and your own agreements with these large language models, then you're good to go, because you're having these conversations and it's in a lockdown environment. It's not being taken. You've made agreements. They call them DURSAs, data use reciprocal agreements, right? Security agreements. So that tells us what we can share. That tells you what you can do. So always having a DURSA, I think, when you're starting to think about how do I use this in my organization, is making sure that you're looking at that in the terms and the conditions. Always. Oh, I know it is not sexy or fun to read, but sometimes you find out nuggets in there. So always reading the terms and conditions. And if you decide that you're not going to share data, like the little thing at the bottom says cookies, which really aren't cookies.
They're not cookies. They're not even snacks. They're not even
snacks.
cute. They're like,
Exactly.
what's the better descriptor for cookies? Like cinder block shoes? Like
little robots that like attach onto you and
Exactly.
Zebra muffins.
Little
where you
monkeys
go.
on your back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like it's not cookie. Like I'm never am I gonna say I don't want cookies.
Yeah.
I'll be like, you know what? I do want a cookie.
Yeah.
But no, on the internet you don't want cookies. And
No.
and this is actually why has it only been in the last year that there's suddenly like all of the sites are like very clear versus like your smallest, littlest, tiniest like terms of agreement. And was there like a recent law that finally got pushed through that was like you must share this to everybody who comes to your site?
I don't
Did
know.
you notice that?
I don't know if GDPR was like, you got to write this. You can't write it in 4 font anymore. You must write it in 12 fonts so people can actually read it. And I think it has to do with like the FCC.
Yeah.
Because you have to make it open and you have to make sure that people understand what they're agreeing to. And
Right.
you can't hide it on a site.
Because it up until like
Exactly.
very recently, it was just like, I can't, what the hell? Yes, just let me
And
pass
there are more
through.
states that are starting to adopt GDPR. That's the privacy law in California, which is very strict. It's modeled after the European security agreement. So it's a lot more strict than we are here in the United States. And it's very detailed about what's done with each piece of data that comes in and where it can be shared and not shared. And when they need to ask you as an individual to use that data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're starting to see more and more states are starting to adopt those because they understand that they have to protect their constituents. But also, there's a lot of government funding that is based on how you interact with data. So there's a lot of other regulations that get written in that we don't know because like, unless you're like one of my policy wonk friends, hey girls, that really look at this and start to pull this apart.
Mhm.
So I think that's a good thing. And like we were saying, the cookies thing is that even if you say no, you still have full functionality on the website. So you're good.
You just don't get the treat, which wasn't a treat in the first place.
Exactly.
You know?
Mhm.
It's like you're paying people to bake you the cookies and then they eat cookies too.
Yeah.
It's like it's no fun for you.
And then you don't even get like
you get nothing.
like a morsel. You get nothing.
Exactly.
Except for like another ad for cute booties because you bought some booties like 3 days ago, right? It's like, oh, did you like these? You must like these, right?
Yeah.
And I think
That's nice.
and again, right, like from some basic considerations
Exactly.
of data pulls, I call it grab, is it's like, well, do I hate that? No, but when there's other things that I don't want to be taken of my
Exactly.
behavior online, health information, considerations, just
Exactly.
generally, right? Like, and I do think there's a really interesting groundswell of not just founders and creators like ourselves who are, interacting with AI more frequently. But I know this woman, Diane Jarvis here in Portland, who's working on an app that allows for women to sell their data back to companies who
Yep.
want it. And I think Oregon Senator Ron Wyden, he's long been very interested in how data security works. I mean, he's one of the people who helped push is it Prop 210? Anyways, Zuckerberg's been at the White House again this week, and we can thank Senator Ron Wyden for getting that party started years ago. And I think holding the standards high in this sort of evolution of technology is going to be really key. And if we leave that up to the people who've done things before, we can see the standards are kind of going lower and not higher. And so I think this conversation particularly is very important. And I think more like it, whether it's, just with your friends around the water cooler at work, your work friends, your partners at dinner, your friends, your family, like being a little more curious about the AI than like threatened by it for those who are not as technically minded, but also thinking like, listen, a hammer used to be technology, right?
Yeah.
A nail file was considered technology. So it's just a way to do things, right? So as we wrap up, if each of you would talk about like what you're kind of offering in the spring and into the summer with your businesses and where people can find you.
So you can find me at teresayounkin.com. Please do not read the AI transcript at the bottom because it's going to be Tracy Duncan, and that is not me. So that is not me. But Teresa Younkin, you can find me there. I'm always on LinkedIn every week. I'm talking about technology, healthcare, tech, interoperability, always there. And my offering is that I do AI workshops for organizations that want to help their leaderships think about this in a strategic way, because we're actually purchasing technology and we're purchasing and we're using technology for a time period and a technological advantage that we don't even know is coming. We don't know what the next thing is. So we need to be really thoughtful about how we're using technology, and also trainings within organizations to make sure that they understand, and all the directors and managers all the way down to your front level workers understand what AI is and how they can use it and how you need to manage that change in your organization. So just reach out, you can DM me here. You can find, like I said, look me up. I'm here.
Nice. Thanks, Teresa.
Exciting. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, and then my website is cascadiasolutions.ai. My email is addie@cascadiasolutions.ai. You can reach out to me there. And like I said at the beginning, I offer AI and data science consulting for startups, nonprofits, and small businesses. Kind of a one-stop shop. Whether you don't have a starting point even to begin with, you kind of know that you have some data maybe and that AI exists, or you have a really cool data science or AI use case and you want to bring that to me too. I can help us build a strategy as well as build out those tools to make it happen.
Nice. Yeah. This is like the hot girl nerd table. Okay. You're welcome. Shout out to Vita. This is their podcast studio that we have been just hanging out and happen to be like color coded in. Like this is just like completely an accident. Even my socks are pink. Like I don't even know how that memo. The same shade. And what you had said, what did ChatGPT think your name was?
Oh, Tracy Duncan.
Tracy Duncan. So the other day I was trying to get a quick bio for the talk we're going to do for Startup Week, which is May 12th to 15th in Portland if you're around, 12th to 16th, I think. Who knows? It's probably I keep seeing things like on the 18th of May. I'm like, apparently Startup Week is Startup Month in Portland because, just keep working. Anyways, Addie will join a panel that I'm curating and leading with a couple other women here in Portland. We'll miss you. We might have to bring you back another time. But Suzanne Tong is going to join us on that panel, as well as Rebecca has a hyphenated last name. I'm going to put it in the notes. I can't think of it right now. It's Friday o'clock. Anyways, when I would put the conversation in to ChatGPT, here's everybody who's going to be on the panel. Give me a quick write up. It changed Suzanne's last name or whole name to Suzanne Johnson. because apparently it was just like too not Caucasian. Like, I don't know. I was just like, what the hell? Like, did I put that in wrong? And so that's just like a very simple bias. Like, listen, robot, like, check your bias. But that conversation can be really great. May 16th. And if you like whiskey, your ticket includes a whiskey beverage. And if you don't like whiskey, your ticket includes a non-whiskey beverage. So Westward Whiskey, the 16th of May, 2:00. So I'll put the link to come to that conversation. Lots happening that week for startup founders, small business owners. There's a funding panel on May the 14th. If you want more information on different conversations like this, be it virtual or in person, talking about building business for good, using tech as a tool, please just hit me up here on the LinkedIn. If my Instagram happened to go live, that would have been rad. I'm still shocked that the meta overlords have yet to kick me off. If you say certain words that sound like pecs, you are clearly making pornographic novels. I don't know, but I just talk about equity. Hey, so thank you, ladies. Teresa, Addie, love this conversation. Love our color palette. Love for the robots as long as they're listening to what we're telling them to do. So thanks everybody for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please like, share, repost, do the whole thing so the internet overlords will know that we are trending.
Yes.
Ciao for now. Bye.